but this is also probably, Cap, the most confusing draft that I've looked at in the last 25 years. Because, even if you want to talk about Cam Ward or, whomever else, there is no guarantee.
Good morning to you, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, Jay Hood. Good morning, Cap. Good to talk to you guys.
Good to talk to you. The NFL meetings have come and gone. We've already been covering the stadium stuff, but it seems like there's a different vibe around the Bears, and what I'm hearing is accountability in the building. Alpha males like Joe Tooney and Grady Jarrett are essential. Al Harris on the coaching staff, Antoine Randall L. Do you sense that there's going to be a different way business is done?
I really do, and everything that I've heard from Ben Johnson since he became the head coach has not disappointed me. I think he's got a lot of reality and the commands and the demands of a good football team. He understood and put together a quality staff of both experienced coaches and ex-players that really can carry a lot of messages into a team meeting, into a position meeting room, and onto the practice field. And I still think that Kevin Warren is one of the alphaest of the males inside that building, and I think his message carries a lot of weight, whether it's the stadium issue or where he wants this team to be in a short amount of time. And even Ben Johnson saying, look, we're not on a 5-year project here. We're on a project to have this team get into the playoffs ASAP.
Yeah, this year.
Correct.
Yeah, this year. And also George McCaskey spoke talking about the future of the Bears.
We've said for many years that we intend to own the Bears for as long as possible. Another 100 years would be great. She set it up for us to accomplish that. She gave us the playbook. She coached us up. Now we got to execute the plan. And we're prepared to do that. We got to stick together.
So it's going to be the McCaskey family moving forward, Tom, which you are very familiar with.
Yeah, you can hear the emotion in his voice talking about his mom, Virginia McCaskey, and I'd probably be the same way talking about my mom after she passed away. But when you look at the McCaskey family and, some of the other younger pieces they have in place there to kind of carry the torch moving forward, but it's going to be about the success of where the stadium is built and the ownership of the stadium, where this team goes with this new coaching regime and what they can do with the career of Caleb Williams. That's really going to tell the story of, the future of the Chicago Bears. But to me, it's as bright as it's been in a long time. And I don't want to, have unreal expectations on Ben Johnson, but like just talking about the coaching staff, some of the personnel they brought in, what they could possibly do in the draft and get these guys in a competitive division situation year one.
In terms of the draft and picking at number 10, the world is your oyster, so to speak, when you're at 1. At 10, there are certain guys that you like, Abdul Carter, Mason Grant, that won't be on the board probably when the Bears pick. Is there a position, I've always believed, and Hoodie knows I subscribe to, maybe this is how I was trained, you take the best single player on the board. Now, they're not going to take a quarterback, but other than that, if the best player on the board's a defensive tackle, take him. Because why would you take a lesser player and leave a better guy on the board? What is your philosophy?
Yeah, I'm with you, Cap. I'm willing to take the best player, from defensive tackle to offensive tackle to safety. But I'm going to be fishing the whole time that draft starts. And I'm going to see, okay, does Shedeur Sanders start dropping down the draft board? And, I've seen everywhere from 3 to 26. Now, if someone's interested in him at 10, and a team that's desperate for him, that's looking for a quarterback, then listen, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to have every one of my scouts calling the guys they know behind the scenes and see if I can multiply my draft choices. But, when I look at the positions of going into the draft, it's still left tackle, defensive tackle, safety. Those are my 3 positions of immediate position stabilization. But this is also probably, Cap, the most confusing draft draft that I've looked at in the last 25 years. Because, even if you want to talk about Cam Ward or, whomever else, there is no guarantee, that, this is number 1, 2, 3, and everybody else falls in place. People are confused about Travis Hunter, where he's going to play. Where do you want to play him the most? Is he a two-position player? Abdullah Carter, now he's got a foot issue that you have to pay attention to, because you never know what can become of that. And he came off of his shoulder injury as well. But, he's a great player, and he fits a lot of voids in a lot of defenses. But, draft night is going to be super interesting.
This is why Cap is always going to be wrong about that, what he just asked you. He's always going to be wrong about it. What you just laid out is exactly what I've been saying the entire time, and that is that if I send you to the store, Tom, to get milk, why are you bringing back Comet? I didn't ask you for milk. I didn't ask you for the sale on Comet. What you just laid out is perfect. It's not just the best player available. It's also drafting for need. You just laid out offense and defensive line. You still want to be able to bolster those sides of the football. You also have to take a look at the secondary as well, because you want to get younger, figure out what's going on with Brisker. You want to find out what's going on with Gordon for the future as well. So all of that matters. So the idea that it's just the best available, it just can't just be one size fit all when it comes to the draft.
You know what, too, is how, through the course, if we sat there and we were in a room together and we all had a pencil and paper and we said, all right, give us, the guys that come to mind that are first round failures. There's no guarantee that whomever you pick at number 10 is going to come in here and be a bona fide star by week 3 of the NFL regular season. So you have to have conviction about your scouting process of the studying that you did on these players and the tape study you did, and what are their assets and what are their coachable corrections that they need to go throughout OTAs and training camp. So there's no guarantee to anything. And when you look at 2nd through 5th rounders, a lot of those guys become Hall of Famers and starters as well.
See, my point to Hoodie is, okay, if I told you at 10, the number 1 safety in the draft is Troy Polamalu, who's in the Hall of Fame, by the way, and, well, we weren't really thinking safety. Well, what do you think of that offensive lineman right there? We like him. I mean, he's markedly down our board in terms of all the prospects. He's number 1 at that position, but the Polamalu kid we got a grade on him. He's off the charts. I'm taking the safety, and I'll figure the other thing out. Why would I take a lesser player?
You just don't know if he's great out of the box. All you know is that he uses head and shoulders.
Again, but you got to go back to what Tom said. You've got to trust your scouting and your player development. If you're like, I don't know, then don't do it. But if you are sitting in the room and you go, okay, that guy's the number 1 guy on our board, and it's not close, I'm taking him, and I'll figure the position stuff out later.
But what about while you're doing that, you're giving up, you're still not getting to the quarterback. I need defensive linemen badly. Even with Jarrett and Deo on the team, I still need to have guys that can get to the quarterback.
Don't disagree, but I'm getting, if I have a great, again, if it's close, okay, it's close. All right, take the guy of need. But if you said, that safety right there, it's not close. He's a 10, and everyone else is at 7.8. I'm taking the 10.
Yeah, the one thing, you have to investigate the evidence that you have on tape. You have to not only look at their highlight tape, you have to look at a tape of a game where maybe they didn't play their best game, but what was their mentality in terms of recovery after a bad play? And those are the types of things that tell you a little about the inside makeup of a player. And then, there's a lot of people that get caught up on measurables. I need to see that evidence to make sure that they can play, because measurables, they're all as they do is they get you caught up in a guy that has great arm length, or you get a guy that has a great vertical jump. I need to see a player put on display exactly what's going to be needed from him at an NFL level against the different things that he's going to be playing against into this division. One thing that I took interesting from the owners' meetings is when Ben Johnson was speaking, he was talking about the requirements of the defensive line by Dennis Allen. And he said Dennis Allen wants defensive linemen that are going to be able to defeat the offensive lineman across from them, get to the quarterback, and disrupt the flow of the running game of any offense. And I like that because when you go and you study an opponent, you go and study their offensive line, there's always going to be a guy that is vulnerable to something. And if you have a defensive lineman that's dominating, then you can always attack that specific player. And throughout the course of my time, whether it was Howie Long or Reggie White or Tim Harris, who was a defensive lineman from Green Bay, those are the guys that would kind of give you an indicator of how they felt about you. If they lined up on you on that first third down, you knew who they designated as the weakness of your offensive line. So, I like that out of Dennis Allen in the way he feels about what he wants his defensive linemen to be.
Yeah, you don't want to be the fish at the poker table.
No.
This is a really good piece from The Athletic. And clear it out, Harry, for God's sakes.
Oh, good. I used the cough button.
Oh, my God. Horrible. From theathletic.com, really good piece by Adam Johns.
Yeah.
They've updated it from yesterday. I talked to Tom about this. They were going through a number of things that they want to see improved just from the meetings they had in West Palm, the coaches and the media. The under center play action game will soon be a bigger part of the Williams repertoire. The Bears only ran 59 play action under center passes last season. The Lions had a league high 190 attempts. So what does that look like, Tom, on the next level? Because as Ben Johnson was introduced as the Bears head coach, he says there's going to be a lot of tearing down of what Caleb learned in his first year and a building back up. What does that look like for more play action passes under center?
I could not love that anymore, and I was so excited when I heard him talk about that. One thing, too, Jay Hood, about that, when he was talking about that, we always hear the term YAC, yards after catch, but he kept using the phrase run after catch. And one thing you have from a quarterback under center and play action is you give an offensive line to be a way more aggressive on an aggressive approach where they're stepping forward rather than retreating. And then when you talk about play action pass, the deceptiveness of it can control an entire defensive front, because you're not asking a defensive front against play action to get unreasonably out of position. They only need to get one step out of position, a little bit off balance, a little bit out of position against a weapon that they're facing that they don't have the recoverability against. And I think a guy like Caleb Williams can take his arm talent, his accuracy, going under center, being more in control of a deceptive count, and start controlling defenses where they're a little reluctant to explode off the ball because they don't know what count is coming. And then you look through the period of time, whether going back to Boomer Esiason or Steve DeBerg or Peyton Manning, that these guys that were in such control of the cadence that the defense was always an nth of a second slower off the ball because they had to hesitate to getting fooled with the cadence. So, listen, man, I love that about Ben Johnson, and I love play action as a player and, as a football fan.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Was that an almond?
That was an almond. Have a great day, man.
Thanks, you guys.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
There he is, the great Tom Thayer on the Yingling Hotline.